And we're back.
Welcome back. Just like that, we're back, and we're now moving into our fourth and final segment for the morning. World Maritime Day 2021 is around the corner. It will be celebrated under the theme Seafarers at the core of shipping's future. In to talk to us all about it, retired Major Gilbert Swaso, Ports Commissioner, Port of Belize, and Edmond Staine, Seafarer Manager at IMMARBE Belize. Guys, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasant good morning, Marlene. Pleasant good morning, my brother.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
It's always nice to have you guys in. Seafarers. And I find it very important, especially reading what the theme is going to be, shipping's future. And a lot of people think that shipping, we take that for granted. It's not important. That's the feeling. Is that so?
Well, the maritime industry, and in particularly the ships in general, are considered to be like an invisible kind of industry.
Yeah.
Because even though we see most of the goods, the shirt we wear, the food we eat, the cars we drive,
Everything.
like almost everything. And it is said that about 90% of the world trade takes place by through the sea.
Yeah.
And even though it takes, and we are a coastal country, we seem not to, by and large, associate the things that we wear, we eat, we drive, that we live in, coming from the sea.
Yeah.
And without that, we wouldn't perhaps be developed the way we are developed. Now, at the center of all that are the seafarers who make these ships move from one place to another. So those are very, very important link in the shipping industry.
And I think that, so World Maritime Day is an opportunity to look at all these agencies and their involvement, and kind of, you may see a ship, you may see a container, but all the people who are working behind the scenes making these mechanics flow, that's your seafarers. Those are people who are involved in this industry.
Yes,
Let's
and in Belize, if I may say, they are what is considered to be the flag state administration, and there is the coastal state administration.
Okay.
And the flag state is represented by Mr. Edmond Staine, and he can certainly explain that very shortly. And the coastal state responsibilities is done by the Belize Port Authority. Right, so they are seafarers within the flag state administration, and they are seafarers at the domestic level, and those are registered and documented by Belize Port Authority.
Well, great clarification. This is a really tough time for seafaring, especially during the COVID. Our fleet was one of the first fleets that got affected because we have a great amount of ships that trade in China. So when the first outbreak took place and we couldn't get crews repatriated because some of the crew are either from Myanmar, Philippines, other countries, and it was hard for us to try to liaise, to try to get them off.
Yeah.
So we instantly sprung into action. You know, there was a circular that we sent out. We organized a task force among the senior deputy registrar, myself, some of the other technical guys, and we tried to see how we could help the seafarers on board.
Yeah.
We had many requests for extensions of certificates, but we had to also look at the seafarers' employment agreements, which are the contracts for them on board, and also the insurance coverages that they had. So everything intertwined into one when dealing with one seafarer, because we have to look at the Maritime Labour Convention's requirements for them to have hours of rest, and then look at how that affects their contracts and how they're working, see if their COCs need to be extended.
Yeah.
They come to us to try to have us extend their certificates of competences, but we can't extend those because we are not the ones that issue those. So we had to try to see if the administrations globally were putting out their circulars and giving the extensions for these before we could apply our extension. Then we delay our ship because we need to make sure that these people get off. Then there were quarantine rules at every different state, so we had to research every different state to see what are the quarantine rules, if they can get the seafarers off, what are the quarantine rules for getting seafarers on board. You know, so it's a lot of issues that we're facing with. Then now, I just got a request last week for a ship owner that wants to vaccinate his entire fleet. I have to explain to him that based on international requirements, we can't allow you to take everybody off the ship because there has to be familiarization of these positions when they go on board. So we have to work on gradual changing of them coming off. Then we have to look at the ports where they're trading to see if they can come off. Now, some ship owners are run out of business because they have to go to other countries where they allow repatriation and they use up the gas, they deviate from their tour of duty for handling in cargo. So we also have one case that we're dealing with, I know of off the back of my mind, where a whole crew is abandoned in Taiwan. And we're trying to work through the diplomatic channels to try to get them out. The owner is out of business. He can't afford to maintain it. So we have to be encouraging all the ship owners to make sure that they have their insurances up to date, make sure that these seafarers are protected, try to get them off. We have some requests that came in for a dispensation because if it's a master or chief engineer, we can't give extensions, we can't give. So we have to make sure we change the manning of the vessel for the intending voyage. And then some people have parents that die, kids that die, they have outbreaks in their countries and they can't go back to their countries. So the psychological effects of these seafarers, has been very great. So our work, my work has doubled. I told Major, my work personally has doubled.
So essentially what is happening, because that is from a coastal zone, a flag state standpoint. So COVID-19 pandemic essentially has disrupted the entire maritime trade. So now we have to see a restructuring of the entire maritime industry with a view that ships can continue to operate, and they have
even
to continue.
in a pandemic.
Yes, even a pandemic. So they have to continue to operate. If not, the entire global economic trade will collapse.
And thank you for that story, because I think where we have heard international reports so often of how global trade has been impacted by COVID-19, especially in the shipping industry, while we may be concerned, or businesses may be concerned on the impacts there, and even those who have registered the ship are concerned, it's the people.
It's the people.
The seafarers.
Yes, it
who
is.
are the ones who are bearing the brunt of all these changes and loss of business.
Yes, and families suffer as a result thereof. Okay, from a coastal zone standpoint, we do what is considered to be port state control. So at some point, we'll have to interface with those vessels and with those seafarers. And there are occasions, as mentioned by Mr. Staine, where we will have the requests for people to do the repatriation. That is one of the biggest challenges that the world is facing at this time, specific for seafarers, as explained earlier. So we have to find ways within our immigration laws to be able to facilitate, along with the labor laws and our immigration law, to be able to facilitate the repatriation of seafarers, so that remember they are contract workers. They do work either 3 months to 12 months, depending on whatever the contract is. And even within that contract, they may be required to certainly change ship, right? Because the shipping operator may want them to be operating in a different shipping lane, right? So they have to change from one ship in a country to another. So again, those things are delayed. Those things, again, as a result of COVID-19, because of the restrictions for immigration and for labor, certainly put a severe disruption in the maritime trade.
And then piracy as well. I think that would be one of those that people...
Well, that is separate apart by itself.
I thought about it, while you were talking, I like, man, people must be out there to try deal with them both. But guys, so this year you'll be celebrating under the theme Seafarers at the core of shipping future. World Maritime Day. When is World Maritime Day and what's planned?
Well, World Maritime Day is slated for the 30th of September every year. And as you guys notice, the theme, the IMO, of course, is trying to champion for every country to try to get on board. And so we have unimpeded shipping of goods and persons, because we also have passenger vessels that sail. And that's the reason why we've reached out to Channel 5 and to see how we could do a virtual event. If you guys know the events that we had before, it's always a huge event where we have all these
on the ship.
we used to go on the ship and give tokens to who's here for Seafarers Day. And then for World Maritime Day, we had this huge event at the Port Authority's compound. I think a couple of years ago, we had the schools came in, we had all the maritime agencies have their booths, because we really want to share the industry with the people that doesn't know about it and see how we could definitely open it up for more business and open it up for young people to see at an early age what their stake could be within the industry. I mean, I didn't know about maritime before going to work at Port Authority the way I know about it now. And if I would have known from a younger age, I maybe wouldn't have wanted to be a fireman. I may have wanted to be a captain or something else. So this is what we're trying to open up to the people. There's so much potential within this industry. It's in its infancy stage. I mean, there's on the local level, as Major and I was discussing earlier, there's so many things we need to do with the implementation of the SCV code and so many components of that that are missing within our country
Yeah.
that can be built for people to open up lucrative businesses from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Great job opportunities.
Well, a good point, because what is evident is that more ships and larger ships are being built.
Yes.
And it is also evident from a survey that there are over 500,000 in terms of shortage of seafarers. So there is an opportunity for Belizeans. There's an opportunity for us to ensure that we have a maritime training center, that we can start training our people, right? So that they can be captains, they can be crewmen, right? And put them on board those vessels, because that opportunity exists in the world as we speak. And as a matter of fact,
Do we know how many seafarers, Belizean seafarers, are working on ships
Abroad,
internationally?
Oh, we don't have a definitive number. We have a good amount of Belizean seafarers, but it's not as much as the other countries. We are like probably the last when it comes to the total amount. You know,
Okay.
we're so deficient because right now Panama has the biggest flag registry, and they created a system where 10% of the fleet has to be Panamanian.
Oh.
They can't even service the amount of people that they need to put on board.
Wow.
So Belize
So in
now,
order to be registered through
Yeah.
Belize, through Panama, sorry, you would have to have 10% of
crew,
your crew
Jamaica
members.
has that same rule.
Jamaica has the same
And
rules.
Belize right now, we are in a position where we could do that, but we don't have the supply. We don't
have to
have the
train
maritime
them.
training center. So our thing right now, well, my office, I have to say, my office is responsible for the compliance package that we're going to submit. We have already redrafted the regulations, so it's just for us to put it together. Because what happened is they changed the criteria for us to accept these things. They now have a tacit acceptance procedure. So instead of you just going home and say you ratify the convention, you have to go home and create the system, present it back to the IMO, and then they have a panel of experts that review it, and then they will approve. And as long as they approve it, then we can implement. So that's actually where we are right now as IMMARBE, because we have a huge audit coming up in 2023, where if we don't pass this audit, we're out of the game.
Wow.
So we need to get investments in the right way and the right area, so that we could develop this thing and grow it to where all our kids could go and train, and we have a job for them. Because with the Seafarers Life, the Maritime Labour Convention mandates that you are flown out, you are fed, you are housed properly, and you're sent back home to where you come
Yeah,
from.
Wow.
and in humane conditions.
Yes, has to
Yeah.
be.
Has to be.
Yeah.
So we have a shortage of seafarers. Is it because of the type of job, or is it that people don't really know what we do
That's
as a
it.
seafarer?
I think it's a combination of the two things,
Uh-huh.
right? There's a combination. As I indicated earlier, that the maritime shipping industry is almost like an invisible industry.
Yeah.
Most people have a tendency to gravitate towards the terrestrial kind of environment, perhaps because of the fear. All right. So while, as I said earlier, that we are a country with a coastal country, you will notice that very few people are involved even at the local domestic maritime trade, right? Not many at all. And we perhaps create some of the problem by not, well, we are still an infant as it relates to the maritime industry. So we now have the opportunity to develop the capacity, right, to be able to train at a domestic level our seamen. All right, then they can gradually be assimilated into the international trade, right? But we have to have a start,
Yeah.
right? And that start, I would want to think, is like today.
Yeah.
And they have IMMARBE, which is the flag state. We have
Port Authority.
certainly Port Authority. And we do have other agencies like the Coast Guard that also involved with maritime affairs, and fisheries that are also involved with the same maritime trade.
Yeah,
So
because they're
we
part
have
of the regulation,
Yes.
regulators that
yeah,
would
they
also
are stakeholders. But
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, we also do have shipping agents, right? So there are people who send freight, right? People who receive freight. So all these people are part and parcel of the maritime industry and different sectors that link, right? Even the transportation, the road, the modal, intermodal kind of transportation, right? Because with those containers, they have to move from off the ship onto land, then to a different direction inland. So it's a network of several
The shortage that you were mentioning has ballooned, because a lot of people that were working as seafarers couldn't get on board their ships because their ships are at sea. They can't get repatriated. The old crew, so the new crew couldn't join. So people started finding other means of work in the meantime to try to
wow.
maintain their family. And then even people that are slated to go on board, they're not so sure if they'll be able to repatriate it when their tour is over with the pandemic. So it has exacerbated this issue where we have people on board past the 12 months as allowed by MLC. And we have to give them extensions and work with the shipping agents, work with the people from the countries. And this guy is on board for an entire year on a ship. Please help us to get them off. So that's the gravity of the situation why IMO came out with this team. And this team is so fitting right now because they are the core of the future of shipping. Imagine not being able to have enough seafarers to send goods and supplies that are essential to certain countries.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think starting with acknowledging how important it is for the global trade, and I don't mean just Belize, I mean across the globe. It really puts it all into perspective.
Yeah,
so World Maritime Day is going to focus on seafarers. Seafarers across the world.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about what you hope people will be able to learn by participating in this virtual celebration.
Well, we certainly intend for people to understand the importance of the maritime trade to the world economy. I think that is critical and very, very important for everyone to understand. We also intend for people to understand the importance of seafaring within the industry, right? Because they are the focus, right? Ships are being built, but they cannot move without the intervention, without the seafarers having their hands on to move these vessels from point A to point B, right? The maintenance of those ships is very, very critical because if you don't maintain those ships well, then they can be maritime casualties, and casualties will lead to degradation of the maritime environment. So everything ties in, and we are looking at climate change, and you don't want to end up contributing to it. The IMO at this time is also focusing on decarbonization for shipping. That's one of the big things that is happening these days. So again, that in terms of decarbonization is linked towards the climate change kind of strategy agenda with a view now to reduce the carbon by 2050, right? The carbon that is emitted by vessels. So there's a lot that is going on, but we want to focus on the seafarer, what the seafarer does, the challenges that the seafarers are facing, and how we intend to deal with most of those challenges with a view to ensure that the maritime trade continue to be what it is, because we cannot as a world, we cannot as a country do without it.
Fantastic.
So when is this celebration? What time? And how are we going to celebrate it?
Well, we will be having a virtual activity, right, that is hosted by Channel 5. It starts certainly at 10 a.m. on Thursday, and it will continue up to, I think, an hour or hour plus. As I said, it will be virtual, but we'll have opportunity for people to participate actively during that same time.
That's right. They can ask their questions about opportunities that exist. And I understand there's some giveaways as well.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks to the Port Authority.
So that's what, a ship? You give them a ship?
Giving away a boat.
No, I also must take this opportunity to certainly extend our sincere gratitude to other stakeholders within the maritime field, because without them, we would not certainly have been able to get some of these goodies that we will be sharing to contribute to those people who would answer some of these questions. But the intent is not for the gift or the token that you'll be getting, but to sort of focus on maritime industry and on the seafarers and the importance of seafarers to the maritime industry.
All right. Retired Major Gilbert Swaso and Edmond Staine, guys, thank you so very much. Enlightening this morning, and we look forward to celebrating tomorrow at 10 live on 5.
Definitely, it's certainly our pleasure, and thanks very much to Channel 5.
All right, we need to take a break. We need to take our final break of the morning. When we come back, we'll be wrapping things up. Stay with us. We will be right back.